Well, grafting is first and foremost is a means of reproduction. If you've got one apple tree and you grow seedlings of it, you're not going to get the same thing back from seed. So you have to have another way of reproducing it to get exactly the same variety back. And the same thing goes with most cultivated fruits. You have to have an asexual means of reproduction. In other words, without using the egg and the sperm and the seed, or you just simply won't get anything exactly like the original parent back. So grafting is a means of reproducing exactly a specific variety. It's simply a matter of taking a piece of the original variety and using something as a root, usually a seedling, or in some cases they can be specifically reproduced rootstocks for the purpose, and putting the cambiums together by means of cutting and fitting and so forth to get the two of them to grow together, and the piece you graft on becomes the new top of the tree and the roots stay as the roots, so that you get another tree that's essentially the same as the one you started out with. I've got some bag scions here. They've been kept in a refrigerator with moist paper, and that's all they are. It's just pieces of last year's wood that are healthy and they're dormant and they've been kept moist enough so they won't dry out, and I'll use them for grafting. The graft I'm going to do today is called a bark graft. This is not always the most common method, but I like it because it works for my purposes, and it is a good way to do what's called top working. In other words, instead of replacing the whole tree with a new trunk, I'm just grafting these into the top of the tree where they will take hold and form some fruiting limbs that I can work with. Now these are probably all I'm going to need for the moment, so I'll put that back. I can use that wood in more grafts later. Now for this graft, I want one long diagonal cut, and I should make it in one shot if I can. That's not perfect. I'm going to try again. That should be fairly good for the purpose. What I'm trying to get here is a lopsided wedge. Well, this is not as smooth and nice as I would like it, but it will work for the way I'm trying to do it. Now, this tree is actively growing, so its bark will be slipping because the cambium is active and it makes the bark loose. I've made a little slight starter cut there so I can lift the bark slightly. The cambium layer, it's only about 2 cells wide actually, but that's where all the growth originates. Now I put this in here with the wedge of it under the bark. The long wedge is against the wood and the short wedge is underneath the back, so that the bark will hold it more or less in place. I lifted the bark slightly first to start with so that it would start to slide in easily. Basically what I want to get is a long straight side that will come in contact with the cambium that's sticking to the wood itself. Now I'm going to lift that slightly. This is just a piece of plastic flagging tape, and I'm going to stretch it around this tightly. I'm not doing anything to tie it, I'm just lapping it over itself. Now in some trees it's not a bad idea to put a support up for some of these. You get a fat bird sitting on one of these and they'll break off. I'm going to trust that they don't, that it's not attractive enough to the birds down here in the underbrush where it is. Plus I'm going to do backup grafts in other places just to be sure. Now that I've tucked that around and through the loop, after several wraps of that, now we'll seal it up. This is Doc Farwell's grafting seal. Well, and when you graft, you have to seal all the surfaces so that the graft doesn't dry out before it heals together and starts to grow. This probably right here is as much as it really has to have to ensure survival, but I'm going to smear it on down the sides a little more because it'll help lock the tape in place so that it doesn't pull apart later on. If I'm not sure if it's going to be able to loosen itself up as it grows, I'll just take the sharp knife later on and slit the side of this tape so that it can pop out and expand as it grows. But that'll be weeks later now. Permanent labeling is a very good idea with any grafting because it's a very frustrating thing to come back 6 months or a year later and find a growing graft and not remember what you put there. Or have to wait years for it to come into bearing so you can remember, oh yeah, that's what I put on there. This was grafted 1 year ago. Here was the original scion right there. Part of this has been trimmed back somewhat now. But you can see it has sprouted up quite a bit and has side shoots coming out, and within a year or two it will probably begin to start bearing. The latex is expanded and grown out. This bark was so tight that I didn't even need to use the tape on it. I was able to simply seal it in place with latex and it stayed put, and now it has healed in so well that it isn't going to pull out readily anymore. It's part of the wood pretty thoroughly.